I've come back to an interesting conversation. I like it.
My cut is right out there, so I won't do that.
He's got some stupid homeowners association that won't let him grow fruiting plants on his balcony.
Hey, that's so lame.
Well, I get away with a grow bag. I have a grow bag shoved right up
Okay,
against the rail.
Full
It's
of
just like
weed.
in modern times, you should absolutely be encouraged to like grow your own. Like, fuck off.
Exactly.
So lame.
I
Anyway.
wish I still had a garden.
Speaking of growing your own, welcome to Star Trek
No.
Trek.
No, explain that. You're not getting away with that. Explain it.
I was hoping we'd get the whole like potted plant conversation in the at the start. But
See, if this was last week's episode, we could have talked about the pots in the little terrariums, and that
Yeah,
could have been
yeah.
the segue and the link. But I haven't got that here, so instead, welcome to Star Trek Trek. This is our ongoing discussion on new episodes of Star Trek and old ones, and we're here to discuss tomorrow the time traveling on James T. Kirk episode. And gentlemen,
okay, hold on.
it's
We
like
don't
I've
have
been
time
waiting
for this
that.
whole
I gave you
shtick.
time to say, "Hey, hold on."
We don't have time for all this. Hypothetical. We'll start with you, Cranky. Would you kill baby Hitler?
Ooh.
Oh, that exact thought was going through my head at that moment in the episode.
Would you kill baby Hitler? Don't wait for the translation. Answer me now.
Probably yes. I'd say yes.
Ooh.
Stars, what about you?
No.
don't.
Yeah.
No.
See, neither would I. I think it's a Star Trek thing because we watch so
Yeah.
many episodes where they're like, you can't screw with the timeline or
Oh,
things
it's not
will
just
get
that.
worse.
It's,
So I'm like,
yeah, go on.
Partly it's for me is I once read a book by Stephen Fry, and it was about a academic who does his thesis at Oxford about German history, and it's like all about, well, what if Hitler hadn't come to power and it had been someone else who had been at the head of like the Nationalist Socialist movement in the 1930s. And he gets thrown out by his professor because it's all speculative bullshit. It's fiction. It's not history. And then he basically time travels back in time to a thing where like he kills baby Hitler, and then it turns out, oh, you make the world way worse because Hitler was a massive paranoiac. He was constantly undermining his own war efforts. He was like a awful human being who constantly alienated all of his best commanders and generals. So if you remove him, then because you're not a history expert, you don't know all the variables that you're
It's an
changing.
unknown. Yeah.
You could potentially make it so much worse. And it's
That's
like
the devil you know.
exactly, and it's a case of like time unfolds the reason it does because of various limiting factors, and it's like, yes, you should probably avoid certain catastrophic events that are obviously bad, but things that have that many chaining events that you can't nail down what could change, I would not risk it. I'd be like, nah, bro, I'm not qualified to handle this.
Fuck it. I like taking a chance. Shoot the baby.
I guess there's two things that came out of both the world wars that were, as horrific as it was, as a mark on humanity is. There are two things. We had a huge technological leap. We wouldn't have half the advancements we do now if it wasn't for the state of war and also the state of relief.
we'd have
afterwards.
boomers. So.
Yeah, well, yes. But also the sense of morality we now have. Like, we compare
The United
a
Nations
lot of
exists
things
because
to
of the
Nazi
World War
Germany.
II, and
Yeah. To
the
things we have
Geneva
now.
Convention,
It is the
for
compass you go,
example,
no, you're going too far that way. Never go full
Hitler is
Nazi.
a scarecrow that casts a very long shadow.
Absolutely.
There's
That's-
also all the stuff that came just after the war as well. There's a lot of
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah, and that's, children need the boogeymen to keep them in line, and we need that little compass and morality to make sure we're decent human beings at the end of the day. So, no, I wouldn't kill
That
Hitler
being
as a baby.
said, if you're standing there with a gun and the lives of all those innocent people on your conscience, it would be hard not to.
I feel like
It'd
shit.
be the ultimate.
I'm
It'd
just,
be the
I feel
ultimate
like shit.
gut punch.
I've just got that vision of a little baby with a Hitler moustache. And me pointing a gun at him.
So this reminds me of something that's completely unrelated to anything. Like, do you guys know that the new Kingsman movie ends with like a post-credit scenes of Hitler, like he's fucking Thanos in the Avengers?
Does it
Just
really?
set in World War One.
No.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
I didn't know they were making a new
That's
Kingsman,
terrible.
to be honest.
I think
yeah, it's the one with Ralph Fiennes sitting like World War One.
I think I would sell the gun and buy some sauerkraut. That's what I'd do.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway,
Speaking of mass atrocities, let's talk about this episode. A little bit.
ooh, so this is gonna be a
Back to
spicy
Star
one.
Trek.
It's gonna be a spicy one because I think we're very divided in this room alone with what
So-
our opinions are on this episode.
So I said something to Idol before we watched this episode, and I'm only growing more and more convinced
need to
about it with
explain
every
this.
time I watch it. I like this episode a fair bit. I don't think it's very good.
Yeah, how can? Go on.
Okay, so let me explain why I think this. I think that the constituent parts of this episode, so Lauren's character development and where her character lies at the end of this episode, I think that's great. I love the cleaning up of the eugenics war plot holes and
I love
canon
that.
bullshit that's been a problem for years. I really like Paul Wesley's Kirk. I like a lot of the time travel tropes that are played around with in this episode. I like the whole thing with Pelia. I like that. I don't think any of it hangs together in a very cohesive way, and I think that stylistically there are some really jarring tone shifts that go on, especially like a lot of like licensed music that does not need to be there. Guess what? I play music videos in my head all the time of my favorite characters doing cool bullshit. I don't go out and make multi-million episodes of Star Trek sci-fi shows about it because I know that that's a dumb way to make your show. You do not need to have your newest thing that you're playing on your iPod playing over the chess scene. I'm sorry, I like that chess scene a lot, but that licensed music is not required, and it was only even more jarring when you had the Mustang chase scene, which was completely pointless.
Paul Wesley doing Tokyo Drift while I'm high on Molly is blaring in the background. I'm like, this is peak Star Trek, baby. Yeah.
We were one executive decision away from Sabotage being played. Like, imagine that. There was a cutout there with Beastie Boys on it. Like,
Is it weird that I'm actually more okay with that because at least it's a reference?
true. Only if his car phone's Nokia.
I'd be more okay with it just because it's a good song.
I think that's what 09 is for me. The movie, it's like, if I went back and watched it now, I'm like, this is not real great Star Trek. But it was at a point where it's like, we may never get Star Trek again. Enterprise has been dead for a while, and they bring it back, and I watched it
Shot
a
in the
dozen
arm,
times
yeah.
in theaters. I'm like, I love this movie.
Yeah, so that's my justification. I liked this episode a fair bit. Like, I when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I really like this bit, I really like that bit. But I just, stylistically, especially, I don't think that it holds together in a very Star Trekian way. Like, I'm sure there are worse time travel episodes. I think like there are some that I said that are downright pointless, like Time Squared or Time and Again are fucking abominable. I think this at least
Time and Again's
contributes
terrible.
to a wider whole. Time Again's awful.
Can I just
But
say,
like, yeah.
naming all your time travel episodes like with the word time in it just makes it so that I can't distinguish them in my memory.
Like
Like
quantum.
they're just all.
Just put Quantum in front of it, it'd be cool.
Well, yeah, I think this is like what the 10th episode that has tomorrow in the fucking title because they
Tomorrow's
can't
Yesterday,
stop themselves.
Return to Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sure we'll have tomorrow's Enterprise at some point.
Well, hold on. Our show's called fucking Star Trek Trek, so let's not throw stones in our glass house, all right?
yes, we're here on Star Trek to talk about tomorrow. Like, it's a bit of a mouthful. How about, right, because this is our first proper exposure to a still not quite Prime Universe Captain James T. Kirk,
quite.
Paul Wesley's version of it. What did we think of his interpretation of Kirk? Cranky.
If I had a penny for
I said
every
Cranky.
time we met an alternate universe Kirk, who isn't quite Kirk but is, I'd have 2 pennies.
By the way, as we give our thoughts, can we like give like a mini grade here, 1 to 10 on his Kirk?
Sure.
'Cause
Yeah, sure.
I feel like we've
But
talked
Cranky
about him
first.
enough.
I've already interrupted him.
After this episode, I'm warming to him. I'm starting to like him. I don't feel like he's Kirk yet. He doesn't feel like Kirk. But there's little bits here and there, like as we said through the episode, like we go, oh, that's Kirk, and it's I don't know, it's working into my mind now. I'm starting to quite like him. I didn't like him. I mean, we saw a little bit of him in season 1. I don't remember a lot of season 1, but I didn't think much to him.
It was different there. It was again another universe, and this one is still another universe. But he plays. I think he does try and play more traditional.
Closer.
And there was
It does,
definitely
it's
yeah.
I'm starting to like the character. He's not necessarily Kirk for me yet, but I'm starting to like the
Oh, he's
character.
got so much charisma. It's ridiculous. Like he's exuding charm and like those Kirkmas traits that I think
Joie
are
de
there
vivre.
Yeah.
and suaveness, and without being an overall impersonation. Although there are moments where you do the whole point of the screen and go, he's doing that, and he's driving a car bad, and he's saying, "My God, Bones, what have I done?"
Give us a 1 to 10, Cranky, on what you think of Wesley Kirk.
How do you mean? As in 1 to 10?
Like,
do I think he's a good?
How good of a Kirk he is? Not like take Shatner out of the equation. Is he like how good of a Kirk is he?
6 at the moment, I think, for me.
Okay.
Go on, Otto.
What totally broke me, like, because I think I might like season 1, Paul Wesley Kirk, a little bit better, because at the core, like, he's a duty guy. That's his first love is the ship, and he's always thinking about duty. He's thinking about doing what he needs to get done. And this episode, Kirk was a little bit not that, like a little bit too playful, a little bit too distracted.
I think that part of that is because the episode we're talking about in season 1 is that is an examination of him as a commander versus Pike, where it's like more about his character, where this is an episode more about Lance. So I can understand why there's a shift in focus. So you are correct. I think that is a correct thing to say.
Because I mean, even in Voyage Home, where you had a lot of playful scenes, you still the byline running through that is all right. We've got to save Earth. We've got to get back. We've got to do this, and so everything is kind of a means to an end. Where I didn't really feel that, but the scene that broke me. You're going to tell me that Lon is the first one to enter his room and not the other way around? That is not the Kirk I know. That is not James T. Kirk. He would not lay there awake pretending to sleep while a beautiful woman has just entered his room. I'm sorry, that is like negative infinity Kirk. So, and while he is stupidly charismatic and handsome, he doesn't have the gravity, I don't think, that Shatner did. Like when Shatner entered the room got a little smaller. Everything got pulled in toward him, and I don't think he has that, at least not yet. So I'm really glad that they didn't say, all right, do Shatner, with the halting speech and everything. Like, there's no way.
No.
That would have died.
We're doing that.
Would have died on the vine.
But he's not Kirk yet to me either.
And
I still think it's pulled together, but we're not there. I'd give him 4.5 out of 10, where he's very charismatic and he's playing something right, but it's not quite Kirk yet.
I'd be happy to say, like, I'll give him more like a 6.5, 7, because, like, I feel like there's a lot there that I like and that exudes. I mean, this is definitely the Kirk suave, charming version with a little less of the commander. Like, I think once we see more of the commander in a Kirk in an episode, maybe in the future at some point, we might get there. But again, like, I think we always compare to Shatner. I think about Pine as well. Like, Pine's interpretation of Kirk as well wasn't impression of Shatner, but it was Pine's own take on the character, younger version of the character. But this kind of is a sort of middle ground between the two. I think there are shades of where he's watched, Shatner's performance and gone, okay, this is how I'm going to interpret this action or this part of this character, because we're dissecting Kirk from the Shatner now, aren't we?
I would say that Pine instantly felt more like Kirk than this guy does.
Interesting.
Wasn't Kirk meant to be a lot more bookish? Around the time of the Academy, I feel like we're kind of extrapolating from the end of the Kirk that we know, rather than doing justice to a younger version of Kirk based on what Trek has said he was.
This is still an alternate reality Kirk, so pretty much every argument goes out the window because you just turn
I have to bring up some context here that I think is kind of crazy that we're not bringing up here. Kirk is only part of a duology. There is no Kirk without Spock, and both times we have seen Kirk here. Even in the Prime timeline, he has not met Spock. No. They make an explicit point of showing, hey, Captain Spock of the Vulcans who we don't hang out with. Yeah. In another lifetime, maybe I'd help you out, but fuck off.
Spock and his shins on armor.
Basically.
Kirk and Spock define each other. And I think that what Strange New Worlds is going to show us is that, like, that started way back when. I don't think it was a case of either of these two are fully formed without the other. Not just a case of their chemistry and how they bounce off each other, but in terms of how they temper each other and how they inspire different behavior in one another. Like, Spock, I think he's inspired by Pike, I think, but I think there's a bit of a distance there. I think he's awed by him in some ways. But Kirk is a peer. He is someone who he is on par with, someone who he can bounce off of in this time period. And then it's like both times we've seen him in Strange New Worlds, he has been definitively shown there is no Spock in his life, and he is a different person as a result. And I think that every time we say, "Oh, well, he's not quite the Kirk," that's intentional.
Yeah.
Like, they are intentionally showing you that, like, this is why this prequel is important, so that you show what Kirk is without Spock, so that when you see them and you go, "Oh, that was the missing component." I'm certain, like, from the little bit of chemistry that he and Ethan Peck showed off in Quality of Mercy, I'm certain that the instant they get on screen, you're going to be like, I'm feeling it more now, because it's about the two. Like, you don't talk about one versus the other, you talk about them together. They are a duo.
It
Like,
is
I
a
feel
bit of an
really
easy
important.
out, but it is totally true as well.
I like that interpretation for Kirk, but then don't have Spock 2 episodes earlier disobey a direct order to save his friend, because that's the kind of maverickness I think that Kirk should have instilled in him over the years.
Definitely.
Except that we were already shown in the menagerie that, like, that already exists in Spock without Kirk. I don't think that Spock's actions in menagerie are...
He's been with Kirk for years at that point.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, his actions in the menagerie are not inspired by Kirk. I don't feel like they're inspired by his loyalty to Pike. I don't think that, even if Kirk had never entered into his life, I still think the menagerie would have played out the exact same way it did. Because in the end, Spock is too human and feels too deeply to let Pike live the life he was living.
But what I'm saying is the Spock we have now is very close to the beginning of TOS Spock, where Kirk is much farther away from the Kirk that we know. So
it's rubbed off. A lot of Kirk has rubbed off on Spock. That's what it feels like.
Like I think that's a great justification you're putting forward, but I would like to see it affect both in equal parts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. But I think that's partly because we've seen Spock for 13 episodes. We've seen Kirk for 2, in fact, and only for 3 minutes of that runtime was the actual normal Kirk. Like, when we see Prime Kirk, I would be really interested to see him be exactly as you say. Like, I want to see him be influenced by Spock in the way. And that's what I'm waiting for that, because I feel like Strange New Worlds is, like, not just leaving things on the vine, and, like, I feel like they are smart enough to know that you have to build up to a moment like Kirk. You can't just do that episode 1, season 1. You have to build up to it and make sure you understand why this is such a momentous moment that arguably the entirety of Star Trek survives because of that charisma and that magnetism that these two men share. You have to believe that this is a relationship that spawned a 60-year franchise, and you have to give it the due diligence, you know?
Give us the Wesley as Kirk rating.
For me, considering the context I've just given, I'd actually give him an 8. I think that there's a lot of really good Kirk moments in here, while still being from a timeline that is less compassionate, that is more individualistic, that is less multicultural, that is less open, and that reflects
you
on
got to take into account.
He's not an explorer, and I think that, like, while Prime Kirk has those moments where he explicitly outs himself as a soldier rather than an explorer, there is something about the idea of exploration, about not being purely a military man, that is really integral to the kind of character that Kirk is. He's a romantic. He believes in the allure of the stars and, you know, a tall ship and a star to steer her by. So you divorce it from that context, and it's like he's lived on an Earth that has been so, you know, driven back by, you know, these Romulan fucking temporal assassins, and it's like that's going to affect him. He's going to feel
he's not even lived on Earth. He's not even lived on Earth.
Exactly. Like, he wasn't even born in Iowa, which I think is one of the funniest in jokes in the entire thing. I was born on the USS Iowa. That's hilarious.
By the way, I think we're going to hit like a 2-hour trek today, so buckle up, folks. We have a lot to unpack.
Well, you know.
All right, Idle, do what we pay you for and steer us into the next topic.
With I'm going to Vulcan nerve pinch you all, jump into my red Mustang, and drive us all to the real heart of the episode, which is La'an's story. One thing I've kind of really loved about this episode was the driving into... Sorry, is that clapping for my awesome segue?
That's clapping for Christina Chong and the writers.
Absolutely, yes, because I love the fact they've pulled apart her character a little bit to say, like, this is how repressed she is, this is how much she struggles, and it takes someone like Kirk to kind of bring her out a little bit, and then she faces loss again, whilst also dealing with her heritage, which comes into direct play this episode, which stunned me, because as soon as you saw the Noonien Singh Institute, I was just like, you know, I had hairs on my arms. I was just like, holy shit, I thought, please be baby Khan, don't be old Khan, because I don't want them to.
That would have been
someone.
too much.
That would have been too much. There would have been another like Benedict Cumberbatch.
I think they picked exactly the right age.
Benedict Cumberbatch comes on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they bring back Cumberbatch. Yes.
Oh no.
Oh, I think I would have shat myself.
Yeah,
oh
I
god.
wouldn't have watched the rest of the season if they'd have done that. I believe these fucking producers
Yeah, no,
are
that would've been
joke. But,
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Like, it takes real balls to take a character who is so defined by their heritage and has struggled with being bullied with it their entire life, hand them a gun, put them in the same room as that heritage, and say, "You have an out.
I'm gonna.
You won't even
I'm
die
gonna-
if you do this."
I'm gonna interrupt Stars with more stars. She's basically Laan Hitler. Like
Yeah,
that's the
Yeah.
impact. If you walked around with that as your last name right now, imagine dealing with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned on the show before, but I had a buddy whose name is Jihad when I lived in Germany, and he went by Sam because you don't go around saying
yeah,
my name
exactly.
is Jihad. Like that doesn't.
no.
Oh,
So-
wait, you were named after that
That's quite
TAS
a name.
episode? Wow. You guys
Yeah.
must really love Star Trek.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like it takes real balls to have. I'm a sucker for it, right? Like, what's that Garth Marenghi quote? Like, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. And there is something about the school of development of I'm going to put you in the room with your
Yeah.
trauma and give you a gun, and the correct answer is to not shoot, and you feel bad about it, but you know you can't mess with it. You can't change that, even though it's going to be painful for you. And so far, season 2 has been really Lance-centric in a lot of ways, and they're doing a
Definitely.
really good job of defining her versus Una, which I think Shai had a bit of a point that having the two characters who had very similar kind of archetypes and characteristics in the first season felt a bit redundant, but they're doing a lot of work in season 2 to differentiate them and show why they have completely different stories. And they're doing a really good job with Lan. And Christina Chong, like, there's one or two acting choices here that I was like, like her reaction to not quite Kirk dying in her arms was a bit stunted.
No, James, come on.
But I feel like it,
Please
The
don't
mo-
die.
the more I think about it, the more I'm fine with it because she is so emotionally closed off. Like, this is a woman who was seeing things in season 1 when she was put in a traumatic situation related to her past. Like, the fact that it all comes out in such a violent fashion at the end kind of shows that it's like, no, she was repressing for the mission.
So two things. A, literally minutes before, she had just opened those floodgates to Kirk. Kissed him, turned on her little heart light, said, I don't love people, but I love you, kind of thing. And then two, all of the build up, the physical stress from the fight with the Romulan. It's like all of those factors kind of should add to the volatility, not suddenly shut her down. Which it's a real minor nitpick because that might be the only part of the whole episode that I didn't like what Chong did. But
Yeah.
No, I can't.
It's a
kind of
pretty
agree
key
with you.
moment. I can, yeah.
maybe reshoot it once or
rationalize
twice
it,
and take the best of it.
Yeah, I can rationalize it in my head, but like when I first saw it, it was quite jarring to see her just kind of because she knocks it out of the park the rest of the episode. Like the ugly crying at the end just fucking destroyed me. Like such a strong moment.
Yeah.
She cried, I cried, we all cried.
So one thing that's I don't know if it's right or not. I don't know if it's the right choice or not. I guess it is because it's Strange New Worlds. If you put like Prime Kirk and Prime Lon in a room together, who's going to be leading the expedition and asking the questions and doing the action stuff? It's probably going to be Kirk, especially when you think of Shatner's Kirk. So he really took a back seat when they're chatting with what's her name, the Lanthanite.
Pelia.
Hell yeah, thank you. He's basically just standing there letting her do all the questioning. He makes like one or two quips. If you put, Shatner's Kirk in the room with them, the hard charging man's man, like he's going to draw a fair bit of the attention. So it is a Lon episode, and I think it's right because it's also her series. But just the dynamic felt a little bit strange because if you want to pull one of the most hard charging, charismatic guys in the entire Trekverse and have him play Robin to her Batman, that's an interesting choice, if nothing else.
Well, I think there are a few factors to that, which is that first off, it's her play. She's calling on Pelia. Kirk has no idea who the fuck this woman is. We don't even know if Pelia exists in his timeline. So it's a case of I'm going to let you do your play, and I'm going to just watch this as kind of a very Kirkian bemusement because I don't understand what the hell your play is here, and I'm also going to mock you when it goes a bit wrong. But it's also a case of if we're talking about like Prime Kirk and not the Kirk we had here, it's a case of Lon is a security chief on the Enterprise, and I feel like if you had the Kirk that we see at the end of the episode in her in a room, then she would probably be leading the expedition because she's got probably seniority. Because security chief on the flagship versus
Actually,
he's a captain, but she's head of security.
Come to think of it, he did lay in his bed with his eyes shut while she was standing there. So maybe this guy is a total wuss. Like, come on, Kirk, you gotta take a chance, man.
Maybe Lon will instill a pin in that charming womanizing thing.
Dude, maybe she opens him up.
We thought it was Spock. It's actually La'an that is his better half. That changes him to be the man that he is.
Yeah. Who knew? Maybe. Yeah. So I feel like I've been like talking about like the depth of this episode. I have to talk about something I fucking hated. That car chase was awful.
Yeah,
didn't need to be there. Cut the entire thing.
It didn't kind of go anywhere as well.
No,
it was bad on multiple layers. It was the second music montage. Like, come on, this isn't Rocky IV. Cut that shit out. I don't want that in Star Trek. B, it didn't lead to anything.
No.
We already were introduced to the Romulan agent, which I'll never remember her name. So
Sarah.
Oh, that's right, Sarah, but it's Sera. 3, like, I mean, maybe I'm too American, but you don't stand there with a video camera and all of a sudden the cops are like, oh, we're not going to arrest this guy that was going, 80 miles per hour down the middle of a busy street because someone has their phone out. So it just, the whole thing was like, what are you guys doing? It's like, it's a little contrived. It probably looked great on the script, but it didn't
I
work.
would have liked 5 more minutes of talking about temporal bullshit and the eugenics wars rather than that car chase.
Absolutely.
I feel like you could have easily cut the hypotenuse there.
Yeah. It was a little bit Magnum PI to start with, the way
a little bit. Yeah.
He just decided to spin it out a little bit and a bit fancy with the drive, and it's no need for it.
There's one thing I like about it, which is they do the piece of the action reference where he can't get the fucking car going, which I think is hilarious. Yeah. But you could easily have salvaged that by taking out the car chase and just have him drive them to Vermont and still have the weird driving thing. Yeah. Like, you don't have to have the car chase even to retain the what I like about it.
So he gets in the car and he's like struggling. He goes forward, backwards. What if they just had him go, all right, I don't know how to drive this. They get out and they take public transportation.
There's a punk rocker on the bus.
Would that not have been like a stroke of genius or something?
No. They have to walk onto the bus, walk back off, and then like Lon's like, what's the exact change?
Yeah.
Dude, an episode of anti-joke Star Trek, I think, would be the greatest thing ever.
I'm down
They'll
for
never
it.
film it.
That is the Voyage Home, though, pretty much. Like, the Voyage Home is like a hell of a lot of anti-jokes in it. Like,
yeah.
Chekhov is the Russian that's literally found on an American ship and is chased about. Like, there's no punchline.
But you know what? That brings me down to another part I like about this episode. So it's a time travel episode, so you have to reference every other time travel episode you've ever done. But I feel like they picked the right ones and they did it in the right way. I also really appreciated like the reference to Wrath of Khan when like Kirk's like first order of business is survival and he's like eating hot dogs by the dozen
with no condiments on it. Like just dry.
I'll relate to that, honestly.
Really?
I'm the same.
No.
I like a bit of bacon or a bit of cheese, maybe, but like I'm not a condiment guy. I'm boring. Sorry.
Good lord.
Condominiums, I never use them.
No.
I'm sorry. That's the second Rocky reference.
Speaking of the other montage,
in another place, though.
I did like how they established that Kirk is just awesome at chess. Like from episode 1 of TOS when he's beating Spock on the regular, from court martial as well. It's just like, we'll just Spock is bad at chess.
The amount of money he made just playing chess, he can make a living.
Yeah.
Can't really do the same thing with Pokemon cards, can it? Well, actually you can, but never mind. Okay, bad analogy.
All right, so he said he played with his first officer, but it's not Spock, right? So who is it?
No.
Oh, we don't know.
Who would it have been?
It was like it was a weird reference.
It was Stellan. Kind of it was Stellan from fucking TAS.
No, because it's United Earth. They wouldn't have had any dirty Andorians
the
on the ship.
only person we saw on the bridge that we recognise was
Ortega Senuhura.
Ortega, yeah.
I mean, it's just
maybe it was Battelle. I don't know. Yeah, it's just someone.
I think it's one of those things you're not supposed to think too much about.
But obviously we're Star Trek fans, so obviously we. Oh my god, it was Gary Mitchell! It was Gary Mitchell!
There you go.
we can see Gary Mitchell this season. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, that could be another character they could bring in, couldn't they? You're going to send it to a god and get crushed under a rock? Yeah, me either.
Okay, so it's my turn to grouse. Something I don't like, and I bash Disco for this, so I got to bash them. It's the show Don't Tell, but it's with aliens. So we have Lanthanites, who are humans, but a little shorter, and they speak with a weird accent. You have Illyrians, which are humans, except sometimes they glow. And then you have Romulans, who are humans, except for a split second from far away in a fuzzy shot, you see that their blood is green. And it's like, it's lazy. Like if you leave stuff to the viewers to fill in the gaps, I think that's poor writing on your part. Show me something that differentiates them. Like the name of your show is Strange New World. Show me strange and new aliens. Don't show me just humans with an affectation. Because that, to me, makes me think, like, oh, I'm just watching a TV show. Like, which is counterintuitive, because when you see guys with, like, antennas and all blue, you're like, oh, I'm watching a TV show. But for a Star Trek fan, like, that sucks you in more than everyone's human. Like, because we bashed for years in Burma-era Trek, oh, they're just humans with a little nose ridge. It's like, well, that's more effort than they're putting into current aliens. So I'd like to see a little more differentiation.
So I feel like episode 1 did a pretty decent job of showing plenty of people in makeup. Episode 2. So the thing about Illyrians is they do establish that some Illyrians don't have augmentations that they can hide, which implies that they are there's a wide range of them. We just don't see them because it's I know. I agree. They should.
You've got a big ass budget in 10 episodes.
They did in Enterprise. I think the Illyrians there have some makeup.
So here's my follow-up point, which is this episode feels low budget. And I'm not saying that in a way that it was shot badly. I think it was shot perfectly competently. I mean, minus the style episode, which is subjective.
Yeah, I think the last two episodes have been low budget.
I feel like that. Okay, so that means that probably we're going to get some probably fucking bangers. I mean, we've seen some fucking big sci-fi stuff in the trailers that we have no hint of here yet. So I'm almost of the opinion that episode 2 and episode 3, it's like, cool, we save a bit of money on episode 2 and episode 3. And then we just go ham on the rest of the season, and I feel like that would be fine.
Some of those are the best episodes. Like the best episodes where they're bottle episodes, they really pour into the writing, which maybe they don't quite do as well here. But as an example, just because
episode 2, I think is amazing. It's just a case of I feel like
Shuttlepod 1's a perfect example.
Oh, I love Shuttlepod.
It was an amazing episode, but it was meant to be a cheap bottle episode.
Yeah.
Good lord, did no one play with ships and bottles as a boy? I never played with boy.
Get out of here, Michael Dorn. I do feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity to have, like, because Sarah even references the ears and then she doesn't pull back her hair to show ears.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would have been a really easy thing to do. And that would have absolutely satisfied your
She even points to them, and literally all she's got to do is move her hair out.
I'm sure you have a pair of ears lying around. Spock was earlier in the episode. You had Romulans on screen last season. Did you just throw them all out? What happened?
I said as we were watching it. I said as we were watching it, have Lon punch her, show a little green blood, like trickle down or something.
That would also have been fine,
to show the non-diehards, oh, this really is like an alien. It's not just a...
See, that would have made the scene. Give her a punch in the face, you got the green blood, a hair flicks back, you see the ear, that's it. That's all you need. That's all you needed.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
been perfect.
No.
Yeah, that's fair. I want to bring something up which I think is a underrated moment, which is like this Lon is very much different from season 1's Lon already, and there's a direct callback to episode 1, season 1, where Pike and Lon have the whole conversation about surviving versus living. You know, when they're about to get the genetic disguises, and then Lon repeats that verbatim to Kirk here, and I think that's really good, like long form story development that is not too I'm gonna wink nudge nudge, just like, no, that's something that you pick up on if you recall the exact word choices, and I really like that, because this is Lon loves Canada now, and she's also a lot more expressive than she was in season 1, and I like that.
Turns out all you need to do is take a girl to Toronto and she opens her heart. That's the secret.
Does it bother anyone else that this probably means a million times more to Lon than it does to James fucking Orion Green Girl T. Kirk? Like,
probably.
Absolutely.
I feel kind of bad for her. It's like, it's never going to happen for you, Lon. I know you like him, but
Well, we know.
You're Tuesday to him. That's all you are. So.
Oh, not Tuesday. That's when the photon torpedoes arrive.
Okay.
I agree that Lon definitely feels a little bit better this season. I mean, as you guys know, I wasn't I mean, I didn't dislike season 1. I just didn't like it as much as most people did.
Yeah.
And I felt that Lan was one of the characters that I really didn't feel anything for. I didn't connect with. But this season, I'm starting to feel it. I think it's coming together a little bit now.
Yeah.
So I have another overarching issue. It's not a huge issue with Strange New Worlds, and it started back and right at the beginning. They seem to either do very intense, emotional, serious storytelling, or they do episodes where they can't have a serious line in the whole thing, and they kind of like flip flop. Like you have Spock Amok, you have Kingdom of Elysian, which are like just off the wall, funny stuff. This one is almost that. I mean, it gets serious toward the end, but it's I don't know. It kind of it's given me a little bit of whiplash.
Look
like
at DS9
episode
season
2
7.
obviously was very serious, very emotional,
Very deep.
heartstring stuff, and they kind of like bounce back and forth between them. And I think the classic Trek that I'm used to is on the serious side, but with undercurrents of a little more subtle humor.
I think if you look at things like, DS9 and Voyager especially did a little bit more of that. You've got Bride of Chaotica, you've got Take Me to the Holosuite, you've got, Bada Bing, Bada Bang. Like in the middle of the Dominion War with all this serious arc, they just go, fuck it, let's go pretend to be gangsters in the holodeck. My Armand Bashir. It's not uncommon for Trek to have wild swings from like serious philosophical debates to we're just going to fuck about in the holodeck. Hollow Pursuits as well.
I wouldn't say it's common either, though.
Maybe not on the frequency that we've got.
No, I think Idle
to
just
me a little
made
bit
like
like
10 really iconic episodes that kind of do that particle.
Out of what 1,000 Star Trek episodes.
That's the
You're
thing
not
about
wrong.
having a longer and a shorter season is the episodes that are
exactly.
funny stand
Like
out
you
more
get a lot
because
of different mixes.
yeah, exactly. I think you're not
The
wrong.
funnier episodes are funnier, and the serious episodes are more serious.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's increasing the contrast, it's turning up the sort of the range of how much they can do in an episode, and it's either suffers or succeeds because of that. And I think that's one of the differences between a 26 and a 10 episode season, which
Yeah.
I will give them a 10 out of 10 for their pace of serialization versus episodic, because we're getting the last time on Star Trek, and there's definitely bylines in there, but you're getting enough differentiation that you don't need to really watch episode to episode to get the most out of a lot of these. So I think they're
I
nailing
was
that.
going to say that it feels a lot like they're making that it's episodic. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. There's not an overriding story arc. That's like the whole Whiplash thing feels like they're pushing that point.
every single one of these
It's
episodes
old Trek. It's weekly. It's week after week.
Every episode you could take on its own, but to someone that hasn't watched them before and go, they will get the gist of it. Like, you don't need to know the characters, but you would watch something that's an entertaining episode.
Yeah.
So, funnily enough, I think I kind of agree and also kind of disagree, because I feel like we're leading up to some kind of Romulan thing, because we've had the shy suggestion last Star Wars. Like the previous episode, it had Pasolk, which we think might be a Romulan agent. Season 1 is setting up episode 1 rather is setting up a Romulan war, a Gorn war rather. Gorn, which might be a proxy war. We're not sure how that might play out. I could see that being a ploy by the Romulans to like open up the Federation on another front.
They're
And then
like,
we got the whole
yeah,
thing
we're
with
both green. The
General
Federation
Romulans.
will never know the difference. We'll just
Absolutely, those racists. And it's like, but that being said, every episode has been a very distinct, contained story. It reminds me kind of like mid-noughties Doctor Who, where it was a case of you would have a completely self-contained story that was like satisfying in its own right, but then it would show how it was linked at the very end of the season. It would be coming to a relatively like nice whole without it being distracting. And I feel like I like that kind of format of storytelling. So if it ends up leading up to something, cool. If it doesn't, I'll be like, that's fine. I liked all of these self-contained stories well enough. I like this style that they've gone for.
So Idle, you were a little bit concerned when we were talking during the week that we might bring down your rating of the episode. So there's got to be a lot of stuff in here that you loved. Is there anything that we haven't brought up?
Well,
that might have been like,
funny
ooh,
you
this
should
is
say
fun.
that. How do you guys feel? Well, how do you guys feel about the retcon change and the fact that time is very fluid in the Star Trek universe, apparently, and the fact that they've moved
As it should be.
well, yes, they've fixed Future's End. They fixed the end of Picard season 2 when he brings out the file that says the Khan project, and everyone's like, wait, that's not right. By saying she's been there for 30 years trying to kill Khan, and people keep stopping her. And actually, no, the eugenics wars didn't take place in 92 to 96. They're actually somewhere in the late 2020s or 2030s. We're not sure. Larn didn't look at a newspaper, which is very annoying for me as a lore nerd. I need to know when
it feels like it's a case of it's going to be 2024 or whatever.
Yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
usually what they're going to go with. So I love that change.
Yes.
I feel like that makes complete sense, and I feel like it is also completely consistent with how First Contact and Enterprise handled the
It
thing.
does, however, set up a
Because
dangerous
regeneration,
precedent.
absolute. Well, yeah, but that, you can say that about anything. Regeneration absolutely did not happen in the original version of events. The Borg did not attack the NX-01 Enterprise. That did not happen in the original version of events. But then things changed.
Yeah.
They even call it out in Relativity, like the Bootstrap paradox, where the First Contact thing is referenced by Seven and Duquesne as a weird temporal fuckwad that ruined time in a stable way.
If La'an leaves a gun with Khan, will he go on to be a suicidal mass murderer?
Well,
Not suicidal,
that was,
genocidal mass murderer.
Genocidal. Yeah, I feel like they're
What if she
going to
left
end up
a
retconning.
slingshot in the room instead of a gun? Would he have been a kinder, gentler Khan in the future?
Yes, absolutely. And she should have left him with a teddy bear, but then it turned out the teddy bear had a gun inside, and then he would have become even more sociopathic. Yeah, I feel like it's an easy solution. It's like, cool, time should be fluid, but certain things have to happen.
Wibbly-wobbly,
I feel like
timey-wimey.
World War III is going to end up being the eugenics wars. Is the easy solution.
It's the kind of I mean, from established canon, it's we know nothing about it, and they say that in Star Trek as well. They say, oh well, the records are fuzzy because all the records got wiped out because it was such a bad war, but we came up more hopeful. So it's I am glad they've addressed it in a way that makes a load of sense and actually brings in line with La'an's character. I thought that was very clever.
Well, it's also I'm a big fan of retcons that open up new story opportunities, because if I said to you guys, "Hey, they should do an episode about the eugenics wars," and you'd go, "Yeah, but the fucking timeline doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
When would you even set it? How do you do that?" And now they come out with an episode that makes it really easy. You just set it in this time period. You could put Gary Seven in it. Yes, you could.
And
Yes,
Captain,
I
what's his
guess
name
you
from when they went back in time?
Captain, what's his name?
Christopher.
yeah.
Captain Christopher. That's the one, wasn't it?
yeah, I think it's Captain Christopher. Yeah, I don't know. It worked for me, especially because it's kind of a sequel to the Enterprise's Temporal Wars, which were shitty, but have been kind of redeemed by how Discovery and Strange New Worlds have recanonized, recontextualized how that worked and what that looks like. If more of Enterprise's like bad time travel episodes have been like this one, where they were more focused on character development and opening up story opportunities rather than let's go back to the 2000s and have some shitty day through night shooting, like I would have liked those episodes more.
Man, we should
But I
compare
thought
this
this
with
was a decent
Carpenter
way to handle
Street.
it.
This should be like a back-to-back with Carpenter
It
Street.
feels very Carpenter Street-y, right? Even down to like the character dynamics between Lon and
Kirk, yeah, it's T'Pol,
Kirk
isn't
a
it?
little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah,
I gotta say, I prefer that episode to this one.
yeah.
Can see it.
Minus the start, where Daniels is like, no time to explain, get in, losers, and then they just time travel within the first 30 seconds. Like, there's zero explanation or build up. They're just
Get in
there
the
to.
DeLorean, fuckwads.
Yeah. So, the one aspect of this that I didn't like is the Romulans. It's like, oh, we gotta throw out someone that everyone knows. It's like, no, you
I
don't.
think-
And
Yeah, I think
They
Xindi
are-
would have
the
been a smarter
Romulans-
play. Get a proper Xindi in there, like that'd been like, oh shit, to tie all together.
Can
The
you imagine if
Romulans and the
fucking Dolman
Federation.
walked out?
the Romulans and the Federation are showed as being pretty evenly matched throughout like hundreds of years of history. And some of the biggest episodes, Balance of Terror and obviously Strange New Worlds homage to that, tons of TNG episodes, they're always evenly matched. And if you have guys like jumping back and forth through time from the Romulans, from the Federation, but then, they just wipe each other out and someone goes back and always stops them in time. To me, that just cheapens the whole thing. It's like, all these interesting stories happened, but then they never did because they were just overwritten. And I don't like that. I like my stories to like actually happen. There are a few bottle episodes, like the Silver Blood Planet and Voyager, where it's like you see what happens to this, but then by the end they all disintegrate and it never really happened. But it's a story that only the viewer knows. That kind of makes sense when it's an alien that we may never see again, or a race that's still a little bit mysterious. But when you
That
do it
one really works.
with
It's
one,
like 2 seasons later as well. There's a
Yeah.
season and a half gap or something between the 2
And-
episodes.
Yeah, I think that's why this episode does work, because La'an knows this isn't all just wiped away.
Yeah,
and
this
then
is going to
she's-
affect Lan's development massively going forward.
Yeah, there is an
I
implication. from
think
it.
the episode is fine. I just
Yeah.
don't like that they picked the Romulans to do it because
Okay, yeah, it could have been anyone.
Yeah, I
really.
agree with that. It seems,
They
it
aren't
seems odd
a
being the Romulans.
species that has a massive history with time travel either. Like,
No.
apart from 09, but that's an aberration. That doesn't
Yeah.
really count.
Yeah.
Even the
'cause Eric
Klingons have
Bana
more
was never in
precedent,
Star
really.
Trek.
Yeah. Even the Klingons have more precedent, given
They do.
all the stuff in Discovery with the time crystals. Like, it would have made more sense for them to do it. But the Romulans are a bit of an odd choice. But then again, it does kind of justify why Kirk was picked. Because he can recognize the Romulan ship, whereas Lon wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a flimsy justification.
shit,
You could have
no.
come up with anything.
La'an now knows what Romulan bird of prey looks like, so that's a little implication as well. I wonder if they'll bring that up again.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah, that could come into play. That'd
Yeah.
be interesting.
Unless
Yeah,
Kirk never
imagine
said.
that. She
Well,
has
no,
at the end of the episode, like, at the end of the season, they have to that's the Romulan bird of prey. How do you know that? I can't explain to you how I know.
But hold on, didn't we see a Romulan bird of prey in Enterprise, which is set before?
They were
no,
different
they were always
models.
cloaked, weren't they?
Did they actually see them? I don't know if they saw them, but
I don't think they ever
They-
decloaked.
I think they
Plus,
decloaked.
they had like different style ships.
It was
I
a different,
don't
it was a
think
different ship
the-
entirely. Like, it wasn't the Bird of Prey classic one from TOS with the big old.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure
No.
they even bring up it's been 100 years since we've seen
I'm
their
sure
ships.
I've got
They
a
could
model
look
of a
completely
Romulan bird of
I've
prey
got
from
that one as well,
Enterprise
yeah.
somewhere.
Maybe.
So
But here's the thing: it's also because it's been 100 years. You don't know what their ships are going to look like. Like, if
Yeah,
you go from
it is a little bit
NX-01
different.
to like, the Enterprise, like, yeah, they're kind of the same, but they're also
Mm.
very different ships.
Yeah.
So, question for everyone:
Hmm.
Are you? Because I'm reaching my Kirk saturation point, and we talked about it during season 1. I'm like, please don't make this Star Trek Kirk. You have 1 billion
Yeah.
hours of footage on him.
Yeah.
Give me Pike and crew. So I think this was fine, but I'm just about at my. If they don't bring him back again this season, I'd be okay with that.
They are.
Yeah,
They
definitely.
are.
I
He is-
know they
Unfortunately,
will,
it's
but
back again,
Yeah.
I know they will. But it's like I'm kind of saturated for now. Show me the rest of the crew.
I think there's a
I'm
reason.
totally
I
with
think
you on
that's-
that. I'd
That's why I'm
I'd
kind of
rather not
okay
have
with
so
this
much
first 2
Kirk.
episodes because it's been Spock and Mbenga and like
Hmm.
Lon for these, and Una, like Pike even has taken a back seat. So, and while this was Kirk, he wasn't the focus. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like that is,
He kind
as
of
long
was,
as he's
but-
being used as a secondary character, I'm okay with it. But I can absolutely
was
understand
pretty
the saturation
Yeah, he
point.
was pretty prominent.
He and Lon were pretty much primary the whole way.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but yeah.
I think, well, I mean, for one thing, there's a reason we haven't seen Anson Mount is because during these first few episodes he took time off because he
Yeah.
had a baby. So there are a lot of people just saying, "Oh,
Well,
the
his
Pike
wife
show."
had
I'm
a
like,
baby,
Well, no,
to
sorry,
clarify.
he's got a child, you know.
No, Anson Mount's hair had the baby.
Yes. Yeah.
And I
Speaking
think-
of which, I like the fact that his hair isn't stupidly over the top in this season so far.
You fake
Season
fan.
1, it was a
Get out of here. That's the
distraction.
best
It
part
was an
about Pike.
absolute distraction. And I'm not saying that because I'm jealous or anything.
Man, Crank, you've made a lot of enemies to our listeners now. There's a
But
big
yeah,
Pikes Peak
he
fan
looks
club out
better.
there.
What else do I want to cover? Okay, so
I'm just
you know
kinda-
what I
I'm
like.
trying to cover like all 3 episodes since I missed the first 2 reviews.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Hey, you can
that's
still
why
do
we're
your
going
own
so
on those.
long.
I have to bring something up that I actually really like, which is something that you don't often see, which is that in time travel episodes in which you see an alternate timeline that is arguably
I'll be
worse
right
than
back.
ours. No worries, man. You see a alternate timeline that is arguably worse than ours, and then everyone, through collective telepathy, decides that it's fine to destroy this timeline and everyone in it. And that happens constantly. No matter what the ramifications are, no matter what the potential consequences are, it's always a case of no, my timeline, fuck yours, I don't care. And I appreciate that even while they do still do that, there is an actual character-led discussion about it, and there is a reason why Kirk goes along with it despite initially putting up a resistance. I like that he is like, no, my timeline is just as valid as yours, and then it's like, oh, we don't get sunsets, and we're constantly at war, and my brother is dead.
I mean, one of the things
maybe
is
you have a point.
One of the reasons he is good that he dies in this episode is because they then can't go like 2 seasons down the line, and he appears and he goes, "I'm the Kirk from that alternate timeline you wiped out. Turns out it's a splinter timeline all along, and I'm here. You need to come over here and build us a enterprise or something." You know, so they've eliminated that situation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you cut the hypotenuse to make it easy, but I'm just glad that they cover it because it is a moral issue. It is a case of when you get into the ethics of time travel, do you consider the people who were part of that timeline who were never born to be killed? Did you kill all those people?
He was bad as Khan.
Never happened.
Do they?
So you just gave me a fantastic idea, and the '90s would have been absolutely peak for it. A series called Star Trek Highlander, where they show 2 different timelines, and at the end, the viewers have to call in to the hotline and vote which one should be overwritten by the other one. And then in
I
next
want
week,
Jason Todd to die, says Otto.
dude, wouldn't that be a great concept? Like
That's
the viewers
mad.
phone in on how they
have
want
to
the
wait,
series to
like,
go.
You'd have to wait like 2 years between each episode, though, because they'd be like, right, we're now going this timeline.
No, you know what?
we have
That's
the
the thing you could
technology.
do now. You could do that with a video game. Do that with like a
Interactive
Resurgence
Star
style video
Trek.
game. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They did that. It's
Do it
called
like
Mass
Resurgence.
Effect.
Yes, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, actually. So just a bit of cleanup. I actually really appreciate the little in joke about no one calls Sam George because
Yeah.
that cleans up the fact that in TOS Kirk says that and then no one called him George in JGOS and like no one calls him that. He's Sam. He is Sam Goober with a mustache, Kirk.
Is he referenced in TOS?
Yes.
Is,
He
does Kirk
dies. He
have a
dies.
brother?
See him. Yeah.
He's Shatner,
Shatner
with a moustache.
I can't remember.
By
it.
the way, they missed
Dude.
such a trick. Dude, have Paul Wesley play Sam with a mustache, you fucking cowards.
Nah,
You only
I
have to
like
pay
the
one
actor.
actor. Come on.
Nah, I like what's his name? I think his name is Jean Antoine. He's I think like a French name. Or whatever. He's a fucking great. He's so much fun. He's such a goober. He's such a weirdo. I love Sam Kirk. He's such a dipshit. But yeah,
Well, just
like,
have him play Wesley's character then instead. Come on.
no. I need them to be different. But yeah, like Cranky in episode 2 of season 1. You remember when Sam gets blasted by the egg and he's like face down and they pull him over and they see his face and you see the mustache? That is totally a reference to how he gets pulled over and died in Operation Annihilate in TOS.
I don't remember.
There's tons of little in jokes about that. Like they've watched TOS really ridiculously intensely to get all these little in jokes in there. I love them.
It's been a while since I've watched TOS through, to be fair. But yeah, I don't remember that.
No better
Yeah,
time
no,
than
it's
now.
really cute.
Okay,
Sure.
okay.
Sure.
It is time to spin the wheel of our best and worst moments. Otto, the returning champion, please give me.
No, I'm going to go last.
You're going to go
because
last.
I have a couple bests, and if you guys don't take them, I'm taking both.
Interesting.
So.
Okay. Guest for the week. Cranky, best and worst moment, please.
I think my best moments are the little Paul Wesley / Shatner moments where he sort of that moment where you go, that's Shatner, that's Kirk.
Yeah.
My God,
That
what
made
have you
it for
done?
me. Yeah, there's one point where he literally goes, "My God,"
Yeah.
and that it works. It works. That
Wait,
it's the first
so
time I felt like it
What
was
if he was on the bridge when it exploded, and then he tumbled down into a ravine, and he was like, and then Lon
my.
comes across him, and he goes, "It was fun," and then they end the episode.
Generation style.
Yes, I'm very disappointed that Paul Wesley didn't serpentine everywhere or they start crawling on his hands.
I
should have had a
get you off there.
cock-shaped rock to
Yeah.
fight Sarah with.
Or the rip shirt with the bloodline.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, the marker.
Okay, and your worst.
See, I think somebody else is probably going to say this, but I
Hey,
think
you're
the worst
first.
is
You can claim
the Magnum PI car chase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could all pick that, and it would be completely fine.
It would work. Yeah, it's fine.
Start.
Okay, my best moment would probably be the Prime Kirk Lan interaction at the very end of the episode. I love that scene. I think that Christina Chong knocks it out of the park. It is emblematic of everything I love about time travel stories, which is, lost opportunities, seize what you can while you have the chance, because you, like Picard says in Generations, which is coming up a lot this time, seize the moments while you can, because they will never come again. Appreciate what you have. Time is the fire in which we burn, etc., etc. And I just love the way that Paul Wesley plays it, because he probably got called in the middle of the night, and he's like, "Who is this woman? She's from the Enterprise." Okay, weird. But for La'an, it's one of the most traumatic experiences of her whole life, and she's keeping it together for the 2 minutes that she can, and then she just crumbles the instant the call is off, and I just love that. That emotional volatility is something I really appreciate. So that's my best. My worst moment would probably be Kat Dennings as Romulan spy. I appreciate what they're trying to do. It's kind of meant to play on the Rain Robinson archetype, but just didn't quite work for me, didn't quite come together. Like, there are moments of menace, there are moments of humor, but I don't think it quite gels into a cohesive character. The only way she really makes sense is if she's gone insane from being 30 years, like, in the past, or she's surrounded by humans and she hates them all. But I feel like they spent too much time on car chases and not enough on the villain. Like, it's a very last-minute villain reveal, and it's like that can sometimes work, but I prefer a more developed villain with actual motivation. So that would be my worst.
Okay. So best moment for me is, do you know what? I don't like really romantic films or romantic comedies or anything like that, or I tend to just give them a hard pass and walk away. But something about just Christina Chong and Paul Wesley's chemistry worked so well that even the fact, like, she just met him and she's already just fallen head over heels with him within about 10 minutes made no sense. But the way they acted with it, with the little scene in the living room and then just walking down, talking about life and things like that, which just made me kind of go like, I need more of this. And oh no, it's going to be so bad when she meets him again. This is horrible, and it makes my heart. Apparently, I'm quite soppy, which is something I never knew.
You're soppy when it comes to doomed Star Trek relationships.
Yes.
You have a very specific type.
Feed me unrequited love. It's terrible.
I'm pretty sure that's why Romeo and Juliet has stood the test of time, because something about that appeals to people.
It's weird. Never knew that about myself, but hey, here we are. And my worst moment is the entire way that Kirk treats a hot dog. Just no condiments, and just stuffs it full on in his mouth. There is no delicacies. Like, throws it straight in there and walks away. Like, that was... No, mate, put some sauce on it.
While Lan's cutting a breadstick with a knife and fork.
Yeah. Yeah, there was, I don't know. Eat your food properly, man. Go on, Otto, then. What you got?
And I'm going to give you two best and two worst, and you've already said the two worst, so I'll just echo those. Number one best, they shoot fucking James T. Kirk. Yes. How many times do they introduce a red shirt and you're like, oh, he's going to die. This means nothing to me. Yeah. Not only did it come on the heels of their incredible kiss scene in the street, and then Christina Chong's great acting. So you have all this built up, like, oh, you can come back with me, like, we can make this work. Two Kirks in the main timeline. In the back of your head, oh, that can never work. Like, antimatter and matter will collide, and it'll ruin the universe. So he can't make it back, but you're not expecting that, because no one shoots the fucking captain of the
one shoots Enterprise. James T. Kirk. Not even Soren got away with that.
He's James T. Kirk.
Yeah. So it actually had resonance. It was great, and too bad it was wasted on that terrible Sarah, which is number one of my worst. Terrible character, like cringy influencer. Like, no, I don't want that in my Star Trek.
What's a meme?
It speaks to one of the issues I had earlier, where it's like, you're not showing the alien, you're just telling us that it's an alien. I didn't like any of it, but you already covered that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Best part, number two. When they walk out of the one of us has to change because they're both in the same black leather.
Yeah,
I'm like, yes, that was so funny. That was like, that's the kind of humor that really hits it with me. So that
especially
was
when someone's so deadpan like Large, he just looks over and just gives a disapproving look, and Kirk's just like, okay, I gotta go.
But they didn't even have to make the joke. They just stand there and people start laughing. That is good writing.
Who do you think out of Wesley or Chong, though, who is going to have to go back in and change? It's not going to be Chong, is it? Yeah.
Chong wears the pants. Absolutely.
And then, music montage / car chase number two. It's like, I know sometimes you don't want to be sci-fi, but that's what you are. That's what you signed up for. You're not going to do the other genres better than they're doing it. Just leave it to them and give us compelling, riveting character stories. So there you go.
I would like to add another bad moment, another negative one. It's what Otto said earlier. It's that moment when when she kills the Romulan. That all kind of seemed a little bit. It was done too fast. It wasn't done right.
Yeah, it was a bit rushed, wasn't it?
It wasn't done right. It should have been
Well, the
done
fight
better.
choreography was a bit lame, yeah, and I feel like you could have like zoomed in a bit more, but then it would have been a bit violent, I suppose, with the blood spatter everywhere.
Well, plus, Cranky, what you said, like moments earlier, she was super strength Romulan choking her with one hand, and then like 30 seconds later, she gets beaten in a hand-to-hand combat. So,
Yeah.
And then the fact that Christina Chong or Lan just suddenly beams out in front of young Khan. Doesn't temporal prime directive out the fucking window. Let's just beam out in front of him.
Don't worry, he'll forget about it in the midst of all those awful, like probably incredibly traumatic genetic engineering experience.
Well, he says he never forgets a face. So if you can remember Chekhov, who wasn't even on the Enterprise when Spacey happened, then surely he can remember Lan.
He was off screen. They had a chess match together. Did a bit of light wrestling. He never forgets a face. Okay.
Chekhov was in the toilet at that point. That was all.
Also, before we get on to rating, I just gotta say I hate Pelia. That's.
Ooh,
I like Pelia.
I love
No,
Pelia.
I'm sorry. I like the character. I hate the affectation.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
She makes me smile every time she's on screen. I'm sorry.
I think the accent is thick, but I enjoy it. But okay.
I like it.
Stars, what is our rating criteria for this week?
Gentlemen, how many of Khan Noonien Singh's generic brand Transformers out of 10 would you give this episode?
Hang on, Transformers. Khan Noonien brand Transformers. He did have Transformers in there.
He had Transformers in his bedroom.
Do you think it's the fact he couldn't get Starscream for his birthday one year is what made him go all like genocidal?
Maybe. Like
Mom, I want him.
The Transformer doesn't transform properly. Death to everyone.
Doesn't turn into a fire truck. I will destroy the Earth.
Okay, Cranky.
I think this is. I'm gonna go 6.5 Optimus Primes out of 10.
Interesting.
You got to give us a little more.
No,
Give us a
I'm going
flavour.
to drop that. I'm going to drop that. It's 5.5 Optimus Primes out of 10.
What changed your mind in the last 2 nanoseconds?
You got to justify a little bit, though.
It was good. It was a good episode, but it wasn't necessarily Star Trek in the feel of it. I think it was a decent TV episode of a TV program. But do you know what I mean? It didn't feel like a Star Trek necessarily.
Stylistically speaking, it was a little bit it was a little bit divorced from Star Trek. I can understand that criteria.
All right, Stars.
I'm gonna give this 7 of Khan Noonien Singh's generic brand Transformers out of 10. I feel like
Generic brand.
generic brand because they can't show Transformers. You get sued by
Great
Hasbro.
value.
Yeah, great value, the best value, best deal. I feel like I like the constituent parts more than the whole. If you ask me about this episode, I say I like that, I like that, I like that, I like that, I like that.
Yeah.
But then I say that one part I fucking hated, that one part I didn't like, and as a whole, I'm like I don't like this. I feel like this is the one episode of like I don't like it. I like it more than the child murder episode from season 1.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's probably like just above that in terms of my Strange New Worlds ratings. But that being said, 7 is still a perfectly respectable rating, and I do like this episode. I just don't think that it's very good. I would not show it to someone as a representation of what Star Trek is meant to be.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one more for
a
like
good thing you said.
fans.
You can pick parts out of it and say that's good and that's good.
Yeah.
But that's it.
It's not like I was talking about with episode 1 and episode 2 where I'm like, I like everything here, and it's about picking out what I like. It's like, here I can pick and choose at the threads I don't like and I do. It just doesn't feel like as much of a cohesive whole. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me.
Auto.
I would like to couch this by saying y'all can pick on me for my low ratings. I am, for the whole of Trek, 5.8, just above average. Now, shouldn't that be what you rate a 1 to 10 so that it lands about average over the spread of all the episodes, right? Isn't that like if you always vote everything 7, 8, then like is that really an average, or have you cut off the last?
I mean,
four digits?
I've been killing some with like some ones and some minus scores. Like there are some
I
I
would
think
just,
are absolutely abhorrent.
I'm not attacking anyone else. I'm just saying in my own defense. All right.
It's okay. Otto.
So from the point
I forgive you.
that blessed lead bullet enters Paul Wesley's belly until the end of the episode is a 9.6. I
Really?
love that capstone. Wow. That is a fantastic. They're tying stuff together. There's incredible acting. There's like stuff pulling on your gut and your heartstrings. Love that.
Okay,
everything
9.6
before
then,
that was
so
like a
I'll
one.
put that in.
Was like a 1 point something. Like this was not. This wasn't Star Trek. Okay, and don't get on me for the phrasing. You know what I mean. It didn't feel like Star Trek.
Yeah.
It was like a fun little drama romp from the CW network for me. So I didn't really love it. Overall, it's I don't know. It's got to be like a 2 point. I don't know.
Do you need to add a decimal?
I'll give it a 3 even. I'm going to give it a
okay.
3 even because as we've talked about it, there are a lot of stuff I like. Christina Chong saved it from being a 1 point something. It was a really great episode for her, but all the constituent parts kind of let it down as an episode. But I will give it its props for doing a lot for her and her character. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm probably the person that enjoyed this the most. I'll give it I'll give it 7.5. Wasn't perfect by any means, and I think the parts I enjoyed overrode the bad parts. I think a lot of like I think I'm sort of reeling off how impressed I was with Paul Wesley because I was waiting for another episode to see his chops and what how he handled being Kirk, being a character that everyone knows, yet putting his own spin on it. So I was very happy to see that he rocked it, and I loved his chemistry with Laan. I loved seeing Pelia with this stupid like archaeology little nod there. I thought that was very funny, and then the whole emotional breakdown at the end. I thought that part of cohesive and fixing the timeline and the whole Khan stuff was very tricky. Saying, "Oh, we're going to put Khan in Strangely World season 2," and all been like, "Oh, fuck you, this series is trash."
If I told you last year that some of our favorite parts of Strange New World season 2 were going to be when they cast a young Khan and like showed him on screen and dealt with
I would not have believed you.
Can you imagine?
I would not have believed you. Yeah, so
it was a bold move.
It was bold and it paid off the best part of the entire episode. It's weird.
Yeah. So...
No, 2.8. I'm a 2.8. Sorry. I'm thinking about that car scene again. I'm thinking about being high on Molly. No.
2.5.
No, the car scene was crap. I mean, the things that stop it becoming better for me, like, is those little bits, and yeah, it could be a bit more cohesive, a little less.
The chess scene as well.
Sarah,
while the chess scene was good, the music,
I love Sarah. Yeah.
The music was unnecessary.
Didn't bother me that much. She was a bit of a trope, but I quite like she was maybe the villain. It was a Romulan. Yeah, you're right. They could have put the twirling ears on her in the end, but I feel like
villains who twirl the mustaches are easy to spot, Mr. Wolf.
Indeed, yes, exactly.
She needed to be more Romulan. She wasn't very Romulan for a Romulan.
Agreed. I think
the only way I can make sense of her character is if she's gone insane.
Well, yeah, she
has.
Yeah. Like I said when we watched, I didn't think that at the time, but when you said that, it's like, yeah, that's the only way it works, really.
Stars, you're the best. Yeah. You're the best at justifying all the stuff that Star Trek should have justified in the episode.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But didn't.
Yeah. This is how you know I do tabletop RPG in writing. If I think about this.
Guys, we are so close to people being able to be like proud of Star Trek fans in public. We're not quite there yet, I don't think. As long as they do episodes like this, where we have to have music montages and car chases, I don't think we're quite there yet. But we're getting close, guys. Star Trek is almost completely acceptable to be a nerd in public.
Don't worry, we'll do like 10 episodes about android rights, and then it will become very nerdy and unacceptable to be shown on the show screen. So, I'll drink to that, he says.
Combined, we have given this a 5.8, which currently stands as our second worst rated episode of Strange New Worlds so far.
Is the other one All Who Wonder on our Lost?
No,
all the previous 2 episodes rated at.
We gave them quite high. So I don't know if Auto, if you want to throw in your rating on these, because we gave Ad Astra a 9.2 and we gave The Broken Circle a 7.5. So
Per Aspera, I think I was going to give that a flat 7.
Oof, yeah, okay.
Because I did like it, but it was just a little cloying for me. I don't remember the number one. We'll do that off air.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool, and that brings Star Trek as a whole to a 5.8, same as the rating of this episode. Star Trek is it's all right. It's okay. We'll get it bigger.
It's all right.
It'll get better. It'll get
Hold
better.
on, this is Star Trek, all of Star, not
All
Star
of Star
Trek
Trek.
versus anything else.
No, it's just all of our ratings for Star Trek so far. I've got it. This is a 5.8.
The thing is,
Bearing in
thing
mind
is,
this is a Star
right,
Trek
keep
show.
in mind
we're all
with
Star
that
Trek
average.
fans. It's all right.
that average, when we start getting into DS9, right, and when it's
that's
like
gonna-
season 4, season 5, season 6, it's gonna be like 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, and you're gonna see that average just go. Whoa!
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna see like
We're getting through the
relativity. You're gonna see fucking Year of Hell. You're gonna see Killing Game, and it's gonna go. Whoa! It's gonna
Okay.
go nuts.
Thank you everyone for
the
joining
Dominion
us.
War.
If
Yeah.
we were rating Star Trek against like normal TV, then Wesley falling into the ball pit in the episode Justice would be like a 9.8, because I'd rather watch that all day than an episode of Dawson's Creek. All right, Star Trek. We all love Star Trek. We're grading it against other Star Trek, which is the toughest
Yeah.
yardstick there is.
Yeah.
It's actually,
Yeah.
no, it's hard competition. There's so much of it, and so much of it is very good.
Well, it's that classic thing. Star Trek's biggest critics are the fans.
Oh yeah,
It's true.
It's the way it is. We're the biggest critics.
and people who watch decent television. Anyway, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you Cranky for joining us. Thank you Auto for turning up, and thank you Stars as always. We will see you
Damn
next
right.
week for our review of the next episode of Strange New Worlds. Which, do we know the title yet? Is that called?
I don't think we do.
No, I think all
Has
the
they put out a clip of it yet? Because they usually put a little preview clip.
if they have, I haven't watched it yet. But we'll be back next week for that episode. So
Damn
live
right we will.
Live long and prosper, and ta-ra!